We are now in day 6 of the We are now in week 6 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial. This is the 24th day. The prosecution has brought witnesses, and there was a bit of a shakeup in the courtroom earlier today. I'm Anthony DiLorenzo alongside legal expert Terry Austin talking about dismissed juror number 6. So this is something we expected could happen. The judge signaled, he hinted on Friday that he was leaning in that direction. Why do you think he actually went and pulled the plug on juror 6?
I think, Anthony, the reason he pulled that plug is because when he questioned the witness himself, he saw that the witness continued to change his story. And initially he was living in the Bronx, and then he was living in New Jersey with his girlfriend. And because the story kept changing, the judge did not think that he was being honest. And so for that reason, he said he had to come off. And he wants to make sure that all of the jurors can follow the law. And he had some doubt as to that, which is why at the end of the day, he said that juror has to come up. And he also said that we have alternate jurors. And the reason we have alternate jurors is because we want to make sure that when something like this happens, we have a substitute. And he also said that he has total discretion. He does not have to get agreement of the parties. He can do this if he feels as though there's a need to do it. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what he did.
There was certainly disagreement from the defense. They actually moved for a mistrial. That was denied by the judge right off the bat. Let's talk a little bit about who juror number 6 was. He was a black Hispanic man, 41 years old. He worked at a psychiatric facility in Manhattan. Said he lived in the Bronx initially during jury selection, and then there was some question as to whether he's now living in New Jersey, if he ever did live in the Bronx. So his residency was really the main point of contention here. He's a dad, he's a single dad, he has a fiance, and we really got a good look at juror number 6 because he sits closest to us in the gallery. He also sits closest to Diddy. Anything that you noticed about him? Did he seem like he was leaning one way or another?
Well, one of the things that the defense said was this was a juror who was there on time every day, that he took copious notes, that he did everything he was expected to do. Now, when I looked at him, I cannot tell which way he is leaning. I am interested in knowing what the defense saw because they did fight vigorously for him. I think because he is an African American and because he's paying attention, some of the jurors on some of the testimony have fallen asleep, at least temporarily.
He actually has fallen asleep. I've seen him fall asleep.
Oh, you
yes.
did? Okay, because I did not. And I definitely think he is one of the more alert and attentive, and I think that the defense wants someone who can at least relate to Sean Combs in terms of his background, and he does have that. So it's sort of difficult to lose. And remember, when we had the argument, Xavier Donaldson said, look, I don't want to, literally he said, I don't want to play the race card. I do think that we have to make sure that this jury stays diverse. But Donaldson also admitted that even without this juror, it still is diverse.
Yeah, let's talk about that makeup still, just to remind people. I believe there are still 4 or 5 people of color, believed to be black. There's a South Asian, and the rest white men, right? That's the rest?
Correct. And there is, in the alternate section, there is a Caucasian female. But the judge actually said that we are very fortunate. He agreed with Donaldson that the jury pool, the way it turned out, is diverse. And so even without this juror 6, it remains a very diverse jury. So I don't think we're going to have any issues in that regard. I think from a constitutional standpoint, if in fact they bring this issue up on appeal, there won't be any sort of bias because we have a jury that is definitely diverse and his constitutional rights have been protected because he's being judged by a jury of his peers.
So the replacement juror now is a white man. He's also 47, I believe, 47-year-old from Westchester?
Yeah, I mean, he is in his middle age. I don't remember exactly what his age was, but he too looks like he's paying attention. It was interesting because when he moved down in the seats, he started looking around. I didn't notice him looking around, but now he's a little closer to us.
Oh, we can see him a lot better now. I didn't ever really recognize seeing him before.
Correct. And he looked around the gallery, and I think he probably is paying even more attention because now that you're on that jury, I'm not saying the alternates aren't paying attention, but now he knows he's on that jury. I think he's going to be even more focused than he was before.
Okay, so today on day 24, we had summary witness essentially called as the prosecution's case is now starting to wrap up. at this point. What was the point of these witnesses taking the stand to go over some of the evidence we've already heard?
So the purpose of the summary chart is to get the jury familiar with all of the emails, all of the texts, all of the calls, put them in order, and sort of summarize the information that's been presented so far. The evidence is voluminous, and having a chart like this is really important. And normally you will see a witness like a paralegal or someone from the prosecution's office who has gone through all the evidence and summarized it for that jury, so the jury does not have to look at each and every email, each and every call. Now, of course, that evidence, the underlying evidence, is going to be brought back to that jury, so they can, if they want to, listen to all the calls, read all the emails, but it's to guide them. And the reason you have the witness come on the stand to talk about it is because they have to understand how it was put together and what the purpose was. And I think they did that today.
So specifically, we are seeing some of the flight records of some of the escorts of Cassie, the hotel receipts, the hotel records, the Amex charges, putting that all together, essentially showing that he was flying people in from across the country to engage in these freak-offs. So does that go more to the transportation charge?
Absolutely. To see those hotel records and to see the calls where we had Cassie calling one of the escorts, and then you see the corresponding hotel record. Now, one of the things you may recall during the argument about the records is the witness is not supposed to comment on whether or not the escort and Cassie and Sean Diddy Combs was actually there, because they don't know. They don't have any personal knowledge. They don't have any substantive knowledge. All they know is, here are the emails, here are the texts, here are the records. I put them together, and this is for you, jury, to look at. So I think there was a little bit of argument as to whether or not you could say this is the date that the meeting occurred, because they don't know that. They just know this is the date of the email, this is the date of the text, etc.
So now that the case is pretty much, we've seen their case, how do you feel about the government's case?
Well, it's interesting because the government's case so far has not really focused as much as it could on that RICO charge. Remember, there's the RICO, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. That third one, I think they have. I don't think there's any question about that. Sex trafficking, I think they have through Cassie, because there was force, fraud, and coercion. Certainly there was force. We saw in that March 5th, 2016 tape that there was force. We know that there was a hotel night occurring on that date. I'm a little less convinced that the government has proven the racketeering conspiracy. You have to show that there is an enterprise that is put together, that's conspired with other individuals to actually commit a crime. And I really have not seen them tie that up. We have names of people. I think KK.
And we're not getting to see his chief of staff, Christina Quorum. She's not going to be called as a witness, which I think surprised a lot of us.
It surprised me because someone asked me earlier, who should they bring to show that RICO charge? And the first name that I said was Christina Quorum. She's the chief of staff. She knows everything that occurred, and she would be the one to tie that all together. And if she's not coming, the jury's just going to have to rely on the texts and emails and other communications that have already been presented into evidence. And the question is, will that be enough?
Okay, Terry Austin, you heard it there. And next we are going to continue on with some of these summary witnesses on day 25. We expect that the government could rest by this week. There's a holiday on Thursday, and the defense is now getting together their final witness list, so that'll be really interesting to see who they will call for their case, which could last about 2 weeks. That's the latest as we start week 6. I'm Anthony DiLorenzo. We'll see you tomorrow.